Police are sharing more information after human remains were found near Nancy Guthrie's home. As the search for the 84-year-old continues, a spokesperson for the Tucson Police Department addresses the human bone that was found.
Something surprising has just been found near Nancy Guthrie's property, and police are now calling it an important breakthrough in a case that has already caught wide attention. What was discovered is bringing up serious questions about what really happened around the time she disappeared. At first, it seemed like a normal search in the area, but what officers came across quickly changed the direction of the investigation. The details are still coming out, but early reports suggest this finding could change everything we thought we understood. The main question now is simple but troubling. How close was the truth all along? Join us in this video as we reveal the details. The terrifying discovery near Nancy Guthrie's property. Authorities in Arizona are revealing new and troubling details as the search for Nancy Guthrie continues. Nancy, who is the 84-year-old mother of Today Show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, has now been missing for months. Her disappearance has left both investigators and the public deeply worried. Every new clue has been followed closely, and one recent discovery near her home brought even more attention to the already frightening case. On Thursday, May 7th, police confirmed that a human bone had been discovered near North Craycroft Road and East River Road in Tucson, Arizona. The location where the bone was found is about 7 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood. At first, this discovery raised fears that it could somehow be connected to Nancy's disappearance. Because she has been missing since January 31st, and authorities believe she was kidnapped, the finding of human remains so close to her home naturally caused concern. However, Tucson police quickly explained that the remains were not related to Nancy's case. After examining the bone, investigators determined that it was part of what they described as a prehistoric anthropological investigation. This means the remains were ancient and connected to historical or archaeological research, not to a modern crime. Police also said the investigation was not criminal in nature. To help confirm this, specialists from the University of Arizona Department of Anthropology worked alongside the Pima County Office of the Medical Examiner. Their involvement helped authorities determine that the remains were from a prehistoric context, easing fears that the bone was connected to the missing woman's case. Even though the bone was not linked to Nancy Guthrie, the discovery still brought fresh attention to her disappearance. Nancy has not been seen since January 31st, and investigators believe something terrible happened in the early hours of February 1st.
Assailant walking up to Nancy Guthrie's front door, but then the videos, one of them has him holding his glove over the Nest camera.
According to authorities, surveillance footage showed a masked man outside Nancy's front door during the early morning. Investigators suspect that this individual abducted her from her home. This detail has been especially chilling for both Nancy's family and the public. The thought that someone could approach an elderly woman's home while disguised and take her has created fear throughout the community. Nancy's disappearance is not being treated as a random missing person case. Investigators believe she was specifically targeted. As the case developed, authorities revealed even more disturbing evidence. Nancy's blood was reportedly found outside her home. This discovery suggested that violence may have occurred at the scene. In addition to the blood evidence, investigators also recovered what they called mixed DNA. Mixed DNA means genetic material from more than one person was found in the sample. While this can be a major clue, it also makes forensic analysis more difficult. C.C. Moore, a well-known genetic genealogist with Parabon Nanolabs, explained that mixed DNA samples are harder to study because experts must separate the genetic material from multiple people before identifying one specific individual. This process can take time and often requires advanced forensic tools. According to sources familiar with the case, the FBI has become deeply involved in the DNA analysis. Reports say the sample was first handled by a private lab in Florida that works with the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Later, the FBI began using more advanced technology to further examine the evidence. Investigators hope these efforts could eventually reveal the identity of the suspect. The case has deeply shaken the Tucson community. An elderly woman vanished from her own home, evidence of violence was found, and surveillance footage captured a mysterious masked person. These facts have created a sense of fear and urgency. While authorities continue to search, Nancy's family has remained desperate for answers. For Savannah Guthrie, this tragedy has become painfully personal. Known by millions as a journalist and television anchor, Savannah is now facing every family's nightmare: the unexplained disappearance of a loved one. The emotional toll has been enormous, and the family's public pleas show just how desperate they are for Nancy's safe return. Though the prehistoric bone discovery turned out to be unrelated, it was another reminder of how serious and unresolved Nancy's case remains. Investigators continue to follow every lead, analyze every clue, and search for the person responsible. For now, the mystery surrounding Nancy Guthrie's disappearance remains frighteningly unsolved. As investigators uncovered blood, disturbing surveillance footage, and signs that Nancy may have been deliberately taken, one terrifying question began to grow louder. Who targeted her, and what dark motive could be behind her disappearance? Keeping watching for more. The investigation deepens as questions grow. As months pass since Nancy Guthrie vanished, investigators are continuing to piece together what happened. While some evidence has emerged, many questions remain unanswered. The case has now become one of Arizona's most troubling missing persons investigations, with law enforcement agencies at every level working to solve it. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos has spoken publicly about the investigation, offering some insight while also warning the community. According to Nanos, investigators believe they may understand the motive behind Nancy's kidnapping. He has suggested that this was likely not a random act. Instead, authorities think Nancy may have been deliberately chosen. Still, Sheriff Nanos has also been careful not to give the public false reassurance. In public comments, he warned people not to assume they are safe simply because the Guthrie family was targeted. He stressed that residents should remain alert, aware, and cautious. His message was clear: until the suspect is found, no one should ignore personal safety. This warning has only added to the fear surrounding the case. A targeted abduction involving an elderly woman, captured on surveillance footage, has left many wondering who would commit such a crime and why. One major challenge in the investigation remains the DNA evidence. While mixed DNA can provide important leads, it is far more complicated than a single-source sample. Experts must carefully separate different genetic profiles before reaching useful conclusions. This process can be slow, but advances in forensic science may improve the chances of identifying the suspect. The FBI's involvement signals how seriously authorities are treating the case. Federal investigators often bring specialized resources and technologies that local departments may not have access to. Their use of advanced DNA testing could become a critical turning point. Meanwhile, Nancy's family has taken extraordinary steps to encourage tips from the public. The FBI initially offered a $100,000 reward for information leading to Nancy's recovery or an arrest. But Savannah Guthrie and her family went even further, increasing the reward to $1 million. This massive reward reflects both their heartbreak and determination. It also sends a message that they are willing to do whatever it takes to find Nancy. In addition to the reward, the Guthrie family donated $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, showing support not only for Nancy's case, but for other families facing similar nightmares. The public response has been powerful. Many people have followed the case closely, hoping for updates and praying for answers. Cases involving older victims often create especially strong emotional reactions because they highlight vulnerability and fear. As investigators continue their work, every clue matters. Surveillance footage, blood evidence, DNA analysis, and public tips all play important roles. But despite months of searching, Nancy's whereabouts remain unknown. For now, the story remains one of fear, heartbreak, and unanswered questions. Nancy Guthrie's disappearance has touched people far beyond Arizona because it represents something deeply unsettling: the idea that someone can vanish from home under terrifying circumstances. Authorities remain committed to solving the case, and Nancy's family continues to hope for answers. If Nancy's disappearance may have extended far beyond the walls of her home, could the vast desert surrounding her neighborhood be hiding the missing pieces investigators have yet to fully uncover? Let's delve deeper. The dangerous landscape around Nancy Guthrie's home. As investigators continue working to uncover what happened to Nancy Guthrie, growing attention has focused not only on her home, but also on the land surrounding it. What may first appear to be an ordinary upscale neighborhood in the Catalina foothills has increasingly been described as something far more complicated. Beyond the visible homes and developed streets lies an enormous stretch of rugged desert terrain that may hold critical answers in the case. Experts familiar with the region have explained that the area changes quickly once someone moves beyond the residential zones. Roads give way to rough desert paths, dry washes, hidden trails, and vast open spaces that are much harder to navigate than they appear from the road. These areas are not simple walking paths. They are uneven, isolated, and in many places difficult even for trained search teams to fully control. The land itself creates serious challenges for investigators because it can hide movement, delay searches, and make evidence much harder to locate. Some law enforcement professionals have also warned that certain remote routes in this terrain can act like hidden travel corridors, allowing people to move through large areas while avoiding normal visibility. This has caused growing concern because it suggests that someone familiar with the environment could potentially use the desert to disappear quickly or transport evidence far from the original crime scene. This harsh environment has changed how many people now view Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Instead of seeing it only as an isolated event at a private home, investigators and observers are increasingly considering whether the surrounding desert may be a larger part of the story. Over time, the desert has reportedly begun producing troubling clues. One of the first major discoveries came when a couple walking through the area found a pair of black gloves roughly a mile from Nancy's home. At first glance, gloves in the desert may not seem especially unusual. However, the details surrounding the discovery quickly made it more concerning. The gloves were reportedly found separated by about 10 feet, appeared damaged, and most importantly, seemed to contain visible blood. Rather than touching them, the couple documented what they saw and immediately contacted authorities.
The latest is in regards to a Tucson couple who wishes to remain anonymous, who tells me that they have found 2 gloves less than a mile away from Nancy Guthrie's house.
This discovery drew immediate interest because surveillance footage from Nancy's home had already shown a masked person outside her front door during the early morning hours. That individual was reportedly wearing gloves. Because of that, the gloves found in the desert were not treated as random discarded clothing. They became a potentially important piece of evidence. Investigators conducted DNA testing on the gloves, hoping to identify who may have worn them. However, no direct match was reportedly found through criminal databases. While this did not immediately reveal a suspect, it also did not eliminate the gloves as important evidence. Instead, it suggested that whoever may be connected to them might not already be in the criminal system, creating a different kind of challenge for investigators. But the gloves were not the only unsettling discovery. Search efforts and independent examinations of nearby desert areas reportedly led to the discovery of women's clothing, including pajamas found within broader search zones. This raised serious concern because Nancy was reportedly last seen in sleepwear, not clothing meant for leaving her home. The thought that clothing similar to what she may have worn was found in remote terrain naturally intensified public anxiety. Still, investigators have not publicly confirmed that these items belonged to Nancy. That distinction remains crucial. Without forensic proof, such discoveries remain suspicious, but not conclusive. Even so, each new item adds pressure because it creates the possibility that evidence connected to the disappearance may have traveled beyond the home itself. Additional clothing was also reportedly found in a desert wash, including women's pants, a jacket, and other garments. Unlike random open ground, a wash is a natural drainage channel where water and gravity can move objects over time. This matters because investigators often study how items travel in these environments. When several related objects appear in the same wash, it can suggest more than coincidence. It may point to a directional pattern, allowing searchers to work backward toward where those items may have originated. This possibility has transformed the desert from a background setting into an active investigative zone. The biggest frustration, however, remains the lack of full public confirmation. While certain discoveries have reportedly been described as significant, many forensic findings have not yet been publicly explained in detail. This leaves the case suspended between possibility and proof. For Nancy Guthrie's family, neighbors, and the wider public, the desert has become more than just surrounding land. It is now viewed as a place that may hold pieces of the truth, a harsh and unforgiving landscape where answers may be scattered, hidden, or slowly emerging. As the search continues, one thing has become increasingly clear. Whatever happened may not be contained to Nancy's home alone. The terrain surrounding it may be just as important as the crime scene itself, and every item recovered from that desert may hold the power to move the investigation one step closer to understanding what truly happened. But as troubling clues continued to surface from the desert, an even bigger question began to emerge. Would the scattered evidence on the ground reveal the truth first, or would advanced DNA science uncover the truth first? Let's find out. DNA, law enforcement operations, and the search for the culprit. While physical evidence found in the desert has drawn public attention, another critical battle in Nancy Guthrie's case is unfolding behind the scenes, one centered on forensic science, advanced DNA analysis, and large-scale law enforcement operations. As investigators search for answers, one of the most important questions remains simple, yet deeply difficult. Who took Nancy Guthrie? Nancy's disappearance has already been described by authorities as likely targeted, suggesting that this may not have been a random act. Surveillance footage reportedly showed a masked person approaching her home in the early morning hours, indicating preparation and intent. This alone shifted the case from mystery to active criminal investigation. But identifying the person behind that mask has proven far more difficult. DNA evidence may now represent one of the strongest paths toward that answer. Investigators reportedly recovered biological evidence from multiple locations connected to the case, including from items found near the home. In addition to blood evidence, authorities are believed to be analyzing hair samples that did not match Nancy or those close to her. This matters because unidentified biological material can potentially reveal the presence of another person directly connected to the event. Traditional DNA testing often depends on direct matches through criminal databases. But when no match appears, investigators are not necessarily out of options. Increasingly, modern investigations are turning to forensic genetic genealogy, a more advanced process that examines family connections through wider genealogy databases. Instead of looking only for one exact person, this method can identify relatives and gradually build family trees until investigators narrow down a likely suspect. This technique has solved cases that remained unsolved for decades. If successful here, it could potentially identify someone who has never been arrested, never entered criminal databases, and may otherwise have remained invisible. That possibility makes laboratory work especially important, even if public updates seem limited. At the same time, authorities have reportedly pursued more direct operational leads. One of the most dramatic developments came when SWAT teams and federal investigators carried out a major law enforcement action near Nancy's home. Reports described multiple tactical vehicles, coordinated searches, and detentions at a location only a short distance from where Nancy disappeared. Such a response suggests investigators believed the lead was serious enough to justify major resources. SWAT deployments are not casual decisions. They generally indicate that authorities are responding to intelligence they consider significant or potentially dangerous. Yet, despite the scale of that operation, no public arrest followed. Those detained reportedly denied involvement, and no confirmed suspect was announced. This has added another layer of uncertainty. Strong leads may exist, but even major investigative actions do not always immediately solve a case. For the public, this creates emotional tension. Each operation appears to promise answers, only for uncertainty to continue. Meanwhile, the psychological impact on Nancy's neighborhood has deepened. Residents are reportedly changing routines, increasing surveillance, and paying closer attention to unfamiliar activity. The disappearance of an elderly woman from her own home under suspicious circumstances has altered the community's sense of safety. Sadness has become a recurring theme. Unlike fear, which can rise and fall, sadness often lingers because it is tied to unanswered questions. An empty home, a missing person, and no clear resolution create a painful kind of emotional weight. Despite the uncertainty, the investigation does not appear inactive. Instead, it seems to be moving along multiple tracks at once. Nancy Guthrie's disappearance continues to stand at the center of two powerful investigative forces: the physical search for evidence in the world outside and the scientific search for identity inside the lab. Either one could eventually produce the breakthrough that changes everything. For now, investigators remain caught between evidence that raises questions and science that may someday answer them. Until one of those paths produces something definitive, the case remains painfully suspended, not at the beginning, where nothing is known, and not at the end, where answers finally exist, but in the tense middle ground where every discovery matters. If so many pieces of alleged financial tension, family decisions, and late-night movements are now being linked together, what early events in Nancy Guthrie's life set the stage for everything that followed? Let's learn more. Background of Nancy Guthrie's life and living situation. Investigators are continuing to look into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, and according to the narrative being reported, several possible financial and family-related issues may have played a role. It is alleged that tension began building months before she went missing, although none of this has been officially confirmed by law enforcement. It is alleged that Nancy Guthrie, who was 84 years old at the time, lived a quiet life in her home in the Catalina foothills area of Tucson, Arizona. She was described as a private woman who stayed mostly at home, attended church regularly, and lived independently. It is also alleged that she had some medical needs, including a pacemaker and daily medication, and that she lived alone without regular overnight care or close supervision. The narrative claims that in May 2025, a legal document was signed involving Tommaso Cioni and Annie Guthrie. It is alleged that this document was a durable power of attorney, giving Annie Guthrie authority over certain financial and property matters related to Tommaso Cioni. Some observers allegedly viewed this document as routine, possibly linked to property or financial planning, but others allegedly question its timing when placed in the wider timeline of events. It is further alleged that months later, a financial request was made within the family. According to the narrative, Annie Guthrie allegedly asked her mother for money in the weeks before Nancy disappeared. It is alleged that Nancy Guthrie refused this request.
If Annie was in a financial position where she needed to ask her 84-year-old mother for money and was refused, then the question of why nobody invested in basic protections for Nancy.
This alleged refusal is being treated in the narrative as a possible turning point, although there is no official confirmation that such a request or refusal took place. The narrative then places focus on the value of the properties involved. It is alleged that Nancy Guthrie's home is worth around $1 million, while the home of Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni, located a few miles away, is worth significantly less. This difference in property value is being discussed in the narrative as a possible factor, but there is no confirmed evidence that it is connected to the disappearance. It is also alleged that Nancy Guthrie was living in conditions where she had limited protection at home. The narrative states that she lived alone, did not have overnight care, and did not use a medical alert system. It is also alleged that she did not have active security monitoring at the time. These details are presented as part of the broader context, but they remain unverified in official records. The timeline then moves to the night of January 31st, 2026. It is alleged that Nancy Guthrie went to dinner at the home of Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni. It is further alleged that she used a ride service to get there. The narrative states that she spent the evening at home and was later driven back by Tommaso Cioni at around 9:50 p.m. It is alleged that this return trip has no independent witness confirmation. After this point, Nancy Guthrie was reportedly last seen entering her home. The narrative suggests that this moment is important because it marks the last confirmed time she was seen alive. After that night, the narrative claims that there was a long period of no contact. It is alleged that no phone calls or messages were exchanged between Nancy and the people who had last seen her. This gap in communication is being highlighted as unusual within the narrative, especially given her age and medical needs. If Nancy Guthrie's daily life, family dynamics, and alleged financial pressures all form the background of this case, one question remains. What critical events and unanswered gaps begin to shift the investigation? Stay tuned for more. Delay in reporting and missing time window. Following the timeline of events, the narrative continues with what allegedly happened after Nancy Guthrie was last seen. It is alleged that around 14 hours passed before any missing person report was made. During this time, Nancy Guthrie reportedly did not respond to calls or messages, and no one allegedly checked on her immediately. It is further alleged that Annie Guthrie made a 911 call the following afternoon at approximately 12:03 p.m. The contents of this call have not been made public. It is alleged that the recording is being withheld, possibly due to ongoing investigative reasons. Some interpretations within the narrative suggest that the call may contain sensitive information, but this has not been confirmed by authorities. The narrative also describes a period of investigation involving law enforcement activity. It is alleged that FBI agents and local authorities returned multiple times to Nancy Guthrie's home. The front doorway is described as a key focus of the investigation because it is allegedly where evidence, including blood, was found and where surveillance footage was captured. It is also alleged that investigators seized a vehicle connected to Annie Guthrie and held it for an extended period of time, reportedly more than 40 days. The narrative suggests that this may indicate detailed forensic examination of the vehicle, possibly including digital or location data. However, no official details have been released confirming what was found during that examination. The narrative further alleges that boxes and personal items were removed from Nancy Guthrie's home while she was still missing. It is alleged that Annie Guthrie's vehicle was seen at the property during this time. However, there is no confirmed explanation provided for why these items were moved or who authorized their removal. In addition to this, it is alleged that forensic testing identified a hair sample at the scene that did not match Nancy Guthrie or known family members. The sample is reportedly being analyzed using advanced forensic genealogy methods. It is alleged that this process looks for family connections through DNA databases in order to build possible identity links. No results have been publicly confirmed. The narrative also notes that some family members, including Nancy Guthrie's son Cameron, have not made public statements. It is alleged that this silence is being noted by observers, although no official explanation has been provided for his lack of public presence. Finally, the narrative describes the overall investigation as ongoing and active. It is alleged that multiple investigative paths are being pursued at the same time, including financial review, forensic analysis, and witness timelines. Despite the lack of public resolution, the case is presented as still developing. In conclusion, the narrative suggests a combination of alleged financial tension, limited home protection, and unresolved forensic evidence. However, all of these points remain unconfirmed, and no official findings have been publicly released that directly connect these allegations to the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. If the focus was inside the home before, what changes when the evidence starts pointing to the desert and a sudden blackout in communication? Let's take a closer look. Buried clues in the desert and the night. Everything went silent. Investigators reportedly found a hidden site in the Catalina Desert, about 4.3 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. The area had already been searched several times using helicopters, search teams, and tracking dogs, but nothing was discovered at first. The later discovery was only made after federal investigators allegedly used ground-penetrating radar. This tool is able to look under the ground without digging. It reportedly showed something unusual under the surface inside a dry stream bed. The spot was partly hidden by rocks and natural land features, which made it very hard to see from above or from the ground. Because of its position, the site was not easy to find during normal searches. At this location, investigators allegedly recovered small pieces of black tactical tape and a hiking boot. The tape is often used in field or tactical work and is not usually found in normal everyday settings. The hiking boot was found away from any known walking paths or common hiking areas. Investigators are not treating these items separately, but are looking at them together. Their presence in a hidden desert location is being studied to understand if they may be connected to human activity linked to the case. The location itself is also being carefully studied. It is being viewed as a possible planned disposal site, rather than a random place where items ended up by accident. The area is deep inside the desert and far from the home. It is surrounded by natural rocks and uneven land that make it difficult to see from far away. Because of this, investigators allegedly believe the spot may have been chosen on purpose. The thinking is that whoever used the area may have known it well before the event and selected it for a reason. There is also a tension on a hillside above Nancy Guthrie's home. This high ground reportedly gives a clear view into the property. From this position, someone could possibly watch the house without being noticed. The land includes natural cover and height changes that could help hide a person while still allowing them to see what is happening below. Investigators are considering the idea that this location may have been used for watching the home before the disappearance. This may have helped someone learn daily routines and movements inside the house. What do you think about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for staying with us as we unpacked the desert discoveries and the silent blackout inside the home tied to Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. If this deep dive keeps you engaged, don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen for more stories. See you there.